Hey everybody, pray that you're doing well. Appreciate you taking the time to check out the video log or vlog here. One of my bros really encouraged me to kind of get back into this, and here we go, giving it a shot. And I'm gonna jump right in with something that obviously has been circling the media for a while. Give my little 2 cents on it, my perspective, and my prayer is before I even begin, is that you listen to me, right? You don't jump to conclusions. You don't draw stereotypes out of this or anything like that. You just listen to what I have to say, and then you can do it with your will, because you're gonna do that regardless, right? But I'm hoping you listen to it, and my relationship with you says, okay, maybe there's something to it for the people who know me. So this whole Black Lives Matter, right, turned into, now you get the hashtag response back, all lives matter, and even blue lives matter. Um, Very, very interesting. In fact, I saw today circling around on the web, and some of my associates on Facebook and social media have been posting about the black male who serves the National Guard and was pulled over, and kind of gives his account of, hey man, I was super respectful. I had a gun, and this guy saying it right here. Had a gun and I had to permit, and just obeyed authority and was respectful. They treated me nice. And in fact, he makes this line saying maybe that whole notion, maybe it's just bunk, right? He's just trying to say it's probably not even real, right? If you just respect the authority, if you just do these things, then it works out for you. Immediately before I read that, I watched a video about another black male who got pulled over and gets beat by cops, right? And it's like this animation of his life story is happening, and you kind of see him get abused by cops, kind of what you've seen in media, you hear happens. And so you got these two contrasting stories from two men who maybe identify with the same culture we're talking about, but we'll get to that. And people from either side will cling to each one, right? If you are die hard, Black Lives Matter, and no one listens to you, and black people have it the worst, and you're kind of on that Al Sharpton tip, right, going to extreme, you cling to those stories about racism and being beaten, and every cop is crooked, and man, you got to keep your eye out for them. Some things that I was even told when I was younger. And then if you are on the other side of it, where you're saying there's probably no real truth to that story, and they make it up, and using those terms, right? I've heard that rhetoric. They make it up. They are saying these things, but they're the one inciting the racism, and they're the one that's the whole reverse racism argument thing. You're gonna cling to stories like the National Guard, and hey, if you just obey, right? Frank McLam, God bless the man, he says that, right? If you just obey, then things will work out. And the reality is, let me tell you what you do when you do that. What you do is you stop listening to stories, and you start forming opinions beforehand. You stop regarding people as individuals where their perceptions, their reality. Meaning, just maybe they didn't do something to the extreme like we think. Corinthians tells us, we read Corinthians 13 and weddings, right? Love hopes all and believes all, but he's not talking about weddings. He's actually talking about the body. And I see believers do this, right? Black and white believers or different cultural believers do this, where we stop listening to stories from one another because we're so convinced our perception is right. Since it never happened to me, it has never happened to anyone. And those are only rare cases that happened, just 50 years ago. First of all, 50 years ago really isn't a long time, but that's another story. It blows my mind that you have said you've stopped listening to the individual, to people, and say, man, I'm sorry you've experienced this, even if I haven't. That when you say Black Lives Matter, do you just mean only black people are important? Or do you mean everyone's important, but specifically those who've been disproportionate in society? Right now we're talking about African Americans. If we said Native American lives matter, would you then rebuke that and say, no, everybody matters, and what happened to them years ago isn't important? What about if your daughter, right, the person who's watching this has a little girl, what if your daughter was wronged? Right? Because I think if my daughter was wronged, if my daughter was abused, and I said, man, little Carmen matters, and you responded to me saying, oh, but every girl matters, I'd be ticked off, because I'm not saying every girl doesn't matter. I'm talking about my baby right now, though, right? My story at this moment is what's pressing on my heart. And what I want to challenge you with is, are you listening to individual stories? And for believers, for Christians, figuring out how the gospel can answer those hard questions for them? Or are you too wrapped up in your own culture? Not biblical culture, your own culture, that you're saying they've got it wrong. I have it right. Really? Really? Listen, you want to pick a side, that's your prerogative. For a believer, you should have picked a side long ago, and that should be the gospel, right? Can the gospel meet needs of racism? Absolutely. Can the gospel meet needs of reconciliation? Absolutely. But the reality is we live in our culture. So we take 60-second clips and we take these little blurbs that go viral and we throw them on our social media screen. We throw them in people's faces, and that's the stand we take. And honestly, you are destroying relationships before you ever have a chance to plant a seed. That's all I'm saying. All right, listen, I got to get out of here. Way longer than I like to do these. I'm going to do a few more later. Any questions, private message me. If you got nasty comments and things like that, message me privately. I do not want to have that kind of argument on my post. But if you do that, we can dialogue from there. God bless you all. Love you. Once again, I stand on the gospel, right? Every life matters. Yes. Those who've been wrong throughout history, where systemic racism is in play, absolutely, I'm for that journey, right? I think social justice is key, but with the gospel, if you know me, that's always my stance. But I listen to stories, because just because I haven't walked in their shoes doesn't mean it's not legit. All right, love you guys. Praying for you. We'll chat soon.